I want to talk to you about a concept that I recently heard about which blew my mind, and that's the idea of 3D printing skincare. So last week here on the podcast, I interviewed Melissa Snover of Nourished, who's built an entire business around 3D printing personalised nutrition. And she told me something right at the end of our chat that I just can't stop thinking about. She said we could absolutely 3D print topical skincare. Now that might sound wild, but I guess it also feels sort of inevitable because we already live in a world where you can 3D print a prosthetic limb or a steak or even a house. And I believe NASA's talking about 3D printing a base on the moon. So why not 3D print a moisturiser tailored to your precise skin needs? Because let's be honest, most skincare today is still mass manufactured for an imaginary average user. It's designed for scale, stability, cost effectiveness, basically a certain type of woman typically. And billions of units of the same formulation are churned out over and over in these factories. These formulations have not been designed for you in your climate, with your skin barrier, your stress levels, your diet, your microbiome. And 3D printing could challenge that entire model. And that's what I want to explore on the podcast today. Hi, it's Lorraine Dallmeier, chartered environmentalist, biologist, and CEO of the award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. I host the Green Beauty Conversations podcast, which has had well over 1 million global downloads. And these are my Green Beauty opinions, where I share my takeaways from last week's episode and challenge you to think differently about the beauty industry. If you love hearing my thoughts on green beauty, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. So imagine ordering a cream that's not just chosen from a shelf of generic options, but it's made for you on the spot. A printer blends actives at optimal doses and creates micro-encapsulated layers to keep them stable, excludes any allergens potentially or specific ingredients that you want to avoid. And that formula could then even adapt to the season, to your age, to the blood test you've recently had done or skin scan. Is that futuristic? Well, absolutely, but it's not impossible. And when I interviewed Melissa from Nourished last week, and please go and listen to that episode if you haven't heard it yet, she told me after the interview how she personalizes her own skincare at home right now, mixing her SPF with her favorite serum and adding a tint to get the exact shade she wants that day. She and I talked about this when we stopped recording. And, Melissa is definitely not alone with that. Many of us are already hacking our products and combining, layering, customizing. We are generally not passive consumers anymore in the beauty industry. So I suppose 3D printing could formalize that behavior. And I also suppose it might even be possible to make it, more effective, more accessible. Who knows what's possible? And then if you really want to go wild and really futuristic, I suppose you could combine 3D printing with AI or biotech to make skincare. Because this isn't then just about mixing off-the-shelf ingredients. What if we could print with building blocks of plants grown in the lab? Just imagine lab-cultured peptides designed to mimic human collagen exactly, or custom probiotics that strengthen your barrier microbiome. We've already seen companies 3D print steaks using plant-based proteins. I saw this online a few years ago, and it blew my mind because it looked exactly like a real steak. And we've seen biotech and synthetic biology produce rare plant actives at scale without threatening biodiversity. In beauty, it's not hard to imagine printing a fresh batch of face cream, mad as that sounds, that uses biotech actives tuned exactly to your skin. I know it's a strange thought because it disrupts our ideas of natural and handmade and authentic. And honestly, I know some of my listeners will be listening to this right now and honestly recoiling, because isn't this just more lab-made, over-engineered beauty? That might be what you're thinking. Aren't we meant to be simplifying? Aren't we meant to be trusting nature? Look, I get it. But I also think there's something quite compelling here too, something really futuristic that sounds fascinating. Because if done right, this technology could reduce waste. No more mass producing 50,000 units of a one-size-fits-all body lotion that might sit on the shelf for 18 months. Perhaps even the concept of shelf lives would change dramatically, which could then have a knock-on effect on preservation in cosmetics and stability. Anything is possible if you go really futuristic and maybe a little bit wacky. I suppose it could even democratize formulation, which is, of course, our big mission here at Formula Botanica, because you could imagine local pharmacies or refill bars or even home devices in your own home, letting you print skincare that suits you. Not what the marketing of the beauty industry says you should want, but what you actually want, or possibly even what you actually need. Now, of course, this is not all utopian, and I am going off on a bit of a tangent here, because personalization is notoriously hard to scale. Regulatory systems aren't set up for a batch of one manufacturing where someone's just making one product. And let's be honest, there's a real risk that the industry would use these innovations to charge even more for the illusion of luxury through personalization. But I do think the potential is too interesting to dismiss out of hand. Our students ask me all the time about personalization because they want to try and hack the system so that they can create and sell personalized skincare products. And this might be the answer. So when I asked Melissa if she truly thought people would one day print their own skincare at home, she didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, absolutely. And I find that both thrilling and challenging because it asks us to imagine a beauty industry that isn't just greener in its packaging, but fundamentally different in how it produces, delivers, and then personalizes cosmetics. And that matters. Because real sustainability isn't just about swapping plastic for glass or adding a green label. It's about changing systems. It's about challenging the idea that beauty has to mean overproduction, overconsumption, standardization for the sake of profit margins. And if we're serious about making beauty better for people, for the environment, we have to stay open to the weird, to the futuristic, yes, to the uncomfortable. 3D printed skincare might sound like sci-fi, but so did 3D printed food once. So did personalized nutrition. So did growing plant-derived actives in a lab instead of a field. So this could possibly be a new frontier. And I, for one, want us to keep asking, what if this is possible? What could it mean? And how can we make sure that it's used well? So I'm going to leave you with that thought for this week. And thank you for listening to my Green Beauty Opinions. Remember to visit the Formula Botanica website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the Green Beauty Conversations podcast, please do so now in your favorite podcast app. Leave me a 5-star review if you enjoy these discussions and opinions. And I'll be back soon with my next episode.